New weapons finally coming next week along the delayed update 4.4, additions to the long list of delayed content for Battlefield 5, some information on the next two updates following update 4.4, a statement by the general manager over at DICE, alongside some temporal data leak goodness. This is your week on the Battlefield. Welcome to this episode of This Week on the Battlefield, the show where we cover news, updates, the community, and so much more all around the Battlefield franchise. As per usual, there's much to cover, so let's jump straight into it. Starting off with this week's news and what we got this week. Of course, we had Chapter 4 Week 10, giving us the ability to unlock yet another cosmetic upgrade for our soldier, in this case the Winterkrieg Epic Headgear. But in more interesting news, we also got a new playlist this week, the Blitzkrieg playlist, allowing us to play Panzerstorm, Twisted Steel, Arras Devastation, Rotterdam, Mercury and Marisha all over on Breakthrough, with the Germans being the attacking party, thus of course the name of the playlist, Blitzkrieg. More interestingly, in what to expect next week, finally, after what feels like a true eternity, we will be seeing new weapons coming to Battlefield 5. Specifically, Tides of War Chapter 4 Week 11 brings us the ability to unlock the Panzerbüchse 39, the second AT rifle to be added to Battlefield 5. And if that wasn't enough, following up the week after that, in week 12 of Chapter 4 of Tides of War, we will be getting the Breda M1935 PG, the burst assault rifle that most of us, including myself, for a long time now have been looking forward to getting our hands on. Then, according to the weekly debrief, the now delayed update 4.4 is supposedly scheduled for next week. Now, I would definitely take that with the usual DICE grain of salt, because this update has been delayed before, and DICE most definitely has a history in delaying things further, but as it stands right now, update 4.4 is scheduled to come next week, which of course, if you've forgotten by this time, which I wouldn't blame you in any way for, will be bringing us fixes for stuttering and desyncs on hitboxes, tweaks to the comm rows, the new max rank system, bringing of course the max rank up to 500, and the accompanying change to company coin earnings, going back to a rank based company coin earning system and away from the current way it is set up based on the amount of points you score in any given round. We'll also be getting the previously unveiled Lofoten Islands and Provence maps over for TDM and Squad Conquest, which of course were reviewed somewhat mixed over by some of the game changers at Gamescom last week, and a number of other tweaks and fixes should be within the patch, but we don't have the full details on what exactly that is to entail just yet. In soon TM news, and this is admittedly from last week, but I thought I'd include it here because I didn't put out a This Week on the Battlefield last week, Domination will be coming to Lofoten Island next time the Domination playlist comes around, which gives of course some of us hope that some of the other smaller game modes such as Frontlines, Rush and of course Domination will be coming to both Lofoten Island and Provence, making the map slightly more interesting, I would argue, for a larger community base, given that most of us simply do not play TDM and only some of us Squad Conquest. In our all popular and always active category of delay field, we have some news on the C96 Trench Carbine, which supposedly will no longer be coming in Chapter 4 of Tides of War. It's getting pushed back because of the update 4.4 delay. The exact date for release thus is now pending and no longer certain. Also, the supposed new vehicles mentioned in the Chapter 4 roadmap were never actually intended to release in Chapter 4. In other words, there will be no new vehicles in Chapter 4 of Tides of War. This was supposedly a mistake or miscommunication between the vehicle team over at EA DICE and the marketing team putting out that roadmap. The first new vehicles we will be seeing will be coming of course in Chapter 5 alongside the Pacific, but that is currently scheduled for somewhere between late October, early November, so no new tanks anytime soon. In further big update news, we know what to expect from the coming patches for Battlefield 5 all the way out to somewhere in late September, I'd argue early October. This thanks to the first of the letters from the front, a monthly newsletter supposedly we should be getting now on a regular basis. It was released last week, but again, because I didn't put out an episode last week, I thought I'd include it in this week's episode. Thus, of course, we know all about update 4.4. Update 4.5 supposedly should be bringing some changes to sliding, making it easier to activate and also more consistent, alongside, of course, a number of unannounced changes as it stands. And update 4.6 should not only be finally bringing us the full version of Al Sundan. Again, take that with a massive grain of salt, but it also should still be within the next month, in other words, September, and it should also bring us Operation Underground on Conquest, TDM, a Breakthrough, and Squad Conquest. If they're actually able to pull all of that off in a late update to September, that will be a massive boost to not only the morale of the community, but also the content available to the game. So let's hope that remains as it currently is planned and doesn't get, in typical fashion, delayed by DICE. Then in other news, we have a little bit of temporal goodness showing us off some of the skins he's found once more in the game files. In this case, 2 common variants, supposedly equipable for the Madsen MG short variant, the Enfield No. 5 or jungle rifle, the Model 37 shotgun, the Panzerbüchse 13980 rifle, and the trench carbine. Of course, all of these weapons are yet to be released, with only the Panzerbüchse 39 coming sometime soon, specifically of course next week. But it's good to see that continuous new skins are being added to the game. Hopefully for once we don't have to unlock them in a Tides of War mission, however. Temporia also put out a compilation of all of the M1911 customizations found in the game files, once again showing us that there is actually quite substantial customization put into the game for secondary weapons. But given that there's been, of course, no announcement about that coming, and even announced features such as vehicle customization have basically been put on hold or pushed out indefinitely as it stands now, I definitely wouldn't hold my breath on that coming ever or anytime soon for Battlefield 5. Then over in community news, this week was a quiet week, and thus the community was only grumbling quietly this week. There wasn't really much to talk about. What we do have to talk about, however, is somewhat of a positive reaction to the apology and promises by Oscar Gabrielsen, one of the GMs over at DICE. He put out a statement acknowledging not only the disappointment and frustration of the community with the game and the poor state it currently is in, but also reaffirmed their commitment to the game, and that this would be, much like Star Wars Battlefront 2, a case of the dev team supporting the game long term and actually managing to turn it around. Now, take that with the usual grain of salt, believe it or disbelieve it, it's up to you entirely, but it's good to finally see one of the higher ups over at DICE putting out a statement, at least recognizing the abysmal state Battlefield 5 currently is in. That should be positive really for anybody, whether you currently hate or love the game, find the game absolutely the best thing to ever happen to the franchise, or currently the worst Battlefield ever to be created. But with that, of course, we move on to our Only in Battlefield moments. And this week we have my Wolfgang and Always Baked Never Fried, a staple on the show, starting us off this week with a couple of beautiful takedowns on unfortunate pilots. Thanks Scrub69 up next with a brilliant way to utilize the spotting scope to help zone in on a distant target when using low magnification optics. True bit of creativity here that I thought I'd showcase in our Only in Battlefield moments. And lastly this week then we have the Ohio Milita with a lucky spawn and a fantastic melee streak. But with that, we're coming to the end of this week's episode. If you enjoy the show, find it interesting or entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and of course hit me up with your feedback, suggestions, and opinions down below in the comments or over on Twitter. With all that being said, however, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next episode of This Week on the Battlefield.